Live from the Daiichi Hotel in Tokyo, room 309, complete with hot and cold running maids, it's the Best Care Anywhere podcast. I'm your host, Wilson, joined as always by my lovely, bespectacled, cigar-smoking man, Anthony.
This is weird. I don't know if I like it.
And the vague amalgamation of Stellars, Jays, and Bugs that makes up Jasky.
Yep.
We've been talking for since Craig got in here, like 5-ish minutes, and
10.
that's like the seventh intro attempt we've tried. And we're gonna stick with it.
I like being an amalgamation.
You know, that at the end of the day, isn't that what we all strive to achieve?
Yeah.
The inner amalgamations of my mind are an enigma.
Of course they are. Hello, everyone. I let Wilson do the intro because you know what? This episode's going to be weird. I'm just going to come out and say it. I think everyone knows that due to technical difficulties, the original Ceasefire episode could not get uploaded, at least in a state that I felt comfortable saying, yep, this is the product we wish to put into the world. So we're going to talk about Ceasefire for us the second time, for you guys the first time, and I've decided, you know what? We're not going to force it. We're not going to try to pretend like we didn't already talk about this 3 weeks ago. We're just going to vibe. We're just going to chillax. We're just going to let whatever happens happen. And in case you didn't hear it already, when we first joined the call, I heard a sound. A mysterious sound. A sound something like this. Discord, where we record these podcasts, has just added a feature that I don't know. I'm still not sure if we're actually going to make use of it going forward, but it's so tempting to having it built in. Discord has a soundboard feature, and you can add sounds for specific servers. So we have entered dangerous territory. There may be a mysterious duck quack or air horn in this episode, and it will probably not be my fault. I'm just going to warn you now. I gave permission. I gave permission for the soundboard to be used because they can't give us this, and I be the mean host and be like, don't ruin the integrity of our podcast by making weird noises during it. Because, let's be honest, half of what we do is make weird noises, so now we just have another tool to do it. So yay, there we go. But anyway, moving on from that, I do need to say a quick thank you to friend, guest, occasional lover, Mike Jameson, who gave his permission for us to use a little bit more of the recording from when he guested with us. Since we couldn't put out a regular episode 2 weeks ago, I did a quick little upload of a bit of bonus conversation from that episode, and I wanted to make sure it was okay with Mike that we did that because it was being recorded, but it wasn't after the start of the podcast, so it's in like that gray area of, hey, yes, you're being recorded, but no, we're not using this in the show, so I wanted to get his permission. So thank you, Mike, for saying yes to that, and thank you to you, Jared, and you, Ethan, also, because it's kind of the same thing. It's like, yes, we're recording, but we record a lot of things that don't make it to the podcast for good reason. For good reason we don't. So it has been 3 weeks since we talked MASH to each other. I went on a week-long trip. There was some weird technical difficulties, as mentioned before, but I figured, how's everyone doing? It's been a while since the audience has heard from us directly. Anything new and exciting? Anything interesting going on?
My corneas are looking nice.
Your corneas are. Damn, do you believe that it was a year ago we were talking about your corneas for the first time on the podcast?
I really can't. They've slowed down so much.
What an adventure it's been. Yeah, I went camping on I'll leave it vague for reasons of legality and possible rule breaking. Went camping on the north coast somewhere of California in the Emerald Curtain. It was a very cool trip. Got harassed by some elk. It was a fun time. That's about all I got. Came back home and did Easter egg hunt with the nephew and niece. They are adorable as always. Wilson, I'm gonna give you Wilson's automotive corner, everybody.
Hi,
What did you do,
Wilson here.
What did you do the other day?
I fulfilled a lifetime dream of dragging a rusty car that does not deserve to be fixed out of a farmer's field for $500, and I've been slowly wrenching on it in between bouts of sickness brought on, I can only assume, by the unbelievable, otherworldly amounts of rat shit I inhaled trying to get that fucking car on a trailer to get it home.
Oh boy. Don't leave us in suspense. Give us the make and model. What are you working on?
For those of you similarly mechanically inclined out there, I've got myself a nice 1965 Chevrolet Impala. It's a 4-door with a 327 V8 and a 2-speed power glide that is going in the trash because a man needs at least 4 speeds.
I will throw a tasteful image of your rusted beauty up for the audience to peruse. But yeah, so I think I asked you this before. This is a hobby/project car that you're gonna work on over the next. What's like your time frame? Are you gonna bang this out like a crazy person? Are you gonna savor the restoration? Are you gonna take your time with it? Somewhere in between? What's the vibe?
My time frame is running and driving by the end of the fall. But,
okay, so it'll be like your literally your summer car project.
Yeah.
And then then all the like fine detail and make it purty will be later.
Well, yeah, winter when I have nothing to do and it's too cold to do anything outside. So that's going to be, the paint, the body work, that sort of
That's
thing.
awesome. That's awesome. And
Yep,
I will reiterate, I'm going to steal this from Jared's parents. I'm so proud that you have 2 cars at the same time and not because you wrecked one of them.
You know what? That might make a good little audience special one of these days. One of my
How many cars has Wilson wrecked?
Yeah. We're taking bets
here's a
on
tip.
Twitter.
Here's a tip. It's higher than you think. Whatever number you guessed, you're wrong. Go higher. And then I don't want to ignore Jared. You said something last night, and I figured I'd ask. We mentioned a while back you were enjoying the Star Trek more.
Yes, the Star Trek.
I think last time we discussed it, you were heavily into the Next Generation. What more of the Star Trek universe have you explored over the last couple months?
Well, I've been trying to upscale the Next Generation episodes, and I've been having little luck so far. So I found out that there's a new Star Trek show that I somehow completely missed called Strange New Worlds. It came out, I believe, last year at some point. I think last summer. Recently sat down to watch the first 2 episodes, and it's delightfully Trekky. It takes after the original series in that it's set in the same time period. It's got the same kind of sets and everything. It just feels much more like a Star Trek show than any of the other recent Trek projects, I guess.
Picard.
Yeah, Picard. Yeah.
So in the evenings after we've done gaming or work or whatever, typically we'll just vibe in a Discord call. And one of the things that Jared will do in that Discord call is pick something to watch. And whenever it's Picard, because I'll just hear a quiet it's just like, damn, they must have done something with the plot that Jared did not enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe when you said you were watching Strange New Worlds, you said, the concept that the creators of the show brought to the network was, hey, what if we made Star Trek by making Star Trek?
No, so what it was is
Boom,
the showrunner, while accepting an award for the show, got up on stage and while accepting the award said, so the original premise, the original pitch for the show, Strange New Worlds, was, what if we just made Star Trek? What a revolutionary concept. Wow. And it works. So, yeah.
On the final thing before we get to MASH on subjects of shows we've been enjoying, I would like to, if you did not go listen to the bonus episode, the little 15-minute introductions and conversations with Mike, go back and listen to it, because Mike goes on a nice little 2.5-minute It's not a tirade, it's not a rant, just kind of a little 2.5 minute segment where discussing Star Wars and the fandom and how people should enjoy it. And on that note, I'd like to say I'm liking Mando. I loved the Bad Batch. It just wrapped up. I can't wait for Andor season 2. The Ahsoka show's coming out in August. Like, Star Wars, man. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling
Wow.
the Star Wars right now.
I'm so glad this is the first Star Wars projects we're getting after the prequels trilogy. I'm so happy.
I know,
Yeah.
right? Damn.
Yeah.
It's almost like Star Wars is perfect and nothing is weird about it.
I love what Disney has done with Star Wars so far.
Mm-hmm.
I would
Oh.
like to take this moment to reiterate, after listening to our little fun time with Mr. Jameson, that my opinions do not necessarily coincide with those of my co-stars. So, please do not go knocking on their door for things I say. Thank you.
No, I think I'll reiterate this. Go listen to the little bonus episode from the last episode we released before this, because Mike did something that I really liked. He compared it to comics. If you don't like a specific run for a specific character, don't read that set of comics. If you don't like a certain Star Wars show, that's cool. Don't watch it. And go find one you enjoy. And if someone else enjoys the one you don't like, that's awesome. Good for them. Star Wars, man. It's great. Anyway, we've diatribed long enough. Let's get into this week's episode again. Hey, look, I found the remote for my lights. Huh.
Wow.
Who knew? Anyway, this week's episode that we're discussing for a second time, Season 1, Episode 3, Ceasefire, written by Laurence Marks, directed by Earl Bellamy, and aired on March 18th, 1973. Very simple, very basic episode. We're going to not rush through it, but we're going to move through it fairly quickly because it's pretty straightforward. We open in surgery. Not a tense surgical scene, but not a calm one either. Everyone's busy. Everyone's a little on edge. A little testy, but not too bad. Long surgical session. At the end of the surgery session, we see Colonel Blake in his office with Radar, filling out the forms to order more forms to get more forms.
Formception.
The formception, yes. Trapper and Hawkeye saunter in, say that they are going to be at the Daiichi Hotel, and to call if they need them. And it is at that moment that Radar answers the phone before it even rings, which, okay.
That is Ultra Instinct Radar right there. Pay very close attention.
Yes. And we find out that General Clayton is calling to talk to Henry. And the secret special news that Henry can't reveal to anyone is that there might be, by the end of the day, a negotiated ceasefire between North and South Korea, and thus the United States and UN forces, which means the war might be coming to an end, which, you know, as much as I love MASH, the war coming to an end, probably a good thing. Just, you know, just a guess, just a thought.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, the Korean War did eventually end.
Well,
Did it though?
You know what? I saw that earlier today when I was skimming through the MASH subreddit. Didn't they negotiate and like an official, because when the UN pulled out in 52 or 53, I can't remember the specific year. The Korean War history episode will be happening at some point, don't worry. But when the UN pulled out, it wasn't like a peace treaty, it was a negotiated ceasefire, which is why we have the 38th parallel, the big DMZ zone. There was a like 3-day war back in like the late 60s, early 70s, where South Korea and the UN and the US wanted to cut down a tree to make observation better in the DMZ. And there was like this, like literally they called out like a whole task force to go cut down a tree because it was all posturing. It's hilarious. Like they got like 7 bomber wings, 2 attack helicopters, like an armored division rolled up to the line just so 3 dudes could go out with chainsaws and cut down this tree. It's a whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll have to send you a video on it. It's fucking ridiculous. But didn't they negotiate a final truce like in 2019, 2020? Wasn't that wasn't that one of the reasons, like, didn't Donald Trump go over to Korea and that was part of what happened while he was there? Is like the North and South finally said, yeah, I guess the war's technically over. Woo-hoo.
I'm gonna
I
have to do
don't
more
remember.
research after this episode. I want to say that something political happened between the countries, but I don't think it was a truce.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember. But so Clayton calls Henry and says, a ceasefire has been planned, but don't tell anybody. I'm going to come up there tonight when it's official, and we're going to party and drink, and I'm going to get to see Margaret. He doesn't say that, but we all know he's thinking it.
It's heavily implied.
Heavily implied that Margaret will be there. Everyone is excited, but Henry reminds Trapper and Hawkeye, this is secret. It's not official. Don't tell anyone. Understood? And I love that the first person that we see burst into the office saying, Colonel, did you hear the war's over? And starts blowing a bugle. It isn't Radar. It isn't Ugly John. It isn't a random nurse. It's Frank Burns.
It's Frank.
Of all the people in camp, Frank. Okay. I'm here for it.
He's just so happy to finally, abandon Margaret.
He wants to get back to his $35,000 car and 2 houses, or whatever it is he has. So all hell breaks loose in camp there, and by all hell breaking loose, oh Jesus Christ! The screenshots Jared sends in the chat while I'm talking are priceless.
That is Frank right as he enters the room. He is so happy.
Good Lord. So all hell breaks loose in camp, and by all hell breaking loose, it's like 8 people sitting on a Jeep that's driving in circles around the swamp while the rest of the camp just kind of moseys behind it while throwing toilet paper.
It's excellent.
It's excellent. And I think we said this way back when in the first recording. If there was ever a reason to celebrate like this at Camp Winton, and the
it would be something like that.
If the road made a full loop through camp, there would absolutely be a constant parade. I 100% guarantee it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So everyone's excited. They're blowing air raid sirens, waving flags. There's a reminder saying that the ceasefire is not technically official, but no one cares. No one's listening.
Yeah, we're all going home.
Yeah, everyone's excited. We're going home. The war is over, except for one person. And that person is Trapper. And I do kind of love that they made Trapper kind of the cynic. And this is something we're gonna have to have a long episode about this in the distant future. About Trapper and a character we haven't met yet who also befriends Hawkeye. But I like that Trapper is distinct in that he's a little more laissez-faire than Hawkeye is. He's a little more go with the flow. He gets angry about the same stuff Hawkeye does, like the war and the casualties and the bureaucracy of the military, but he also has this air of like, it is what it is. I can't change it drastically. I can do little bits, but at the end of the day, I'm a dude. I'm here. I know how this is going to go. And that kind of goes here where he's like, look, it's a ceasefire. The war's not over. Once they make up their minds about whatever they're arguing about, the war's going to go right back the way it was a few hours ago. I'll believe it when I see it. So I think it's kind of nice that there's at least one character that is a little more pessimistic and maybe realistic about the situation. I'm kind of glad they gave that to Wayne Rogers to play with this episode. So, yeah, more stuff for Trapper to do. Hooray. Fist bump.
Yeah, Trapper.
Yeah, Trapper. Klinger wakes up because he was not awake for the initial celebration. They tell him the war is over, and he realizes, oh my goodness, I don't have to wear dresses anymore. So he runs off to go do something foolish, I'm sure.
Well, he's gonna make the most of this business opportunity right here because he has a hot value commodity right now, and he's gonna get as much as he can for it.
So Hawkeye and Trapper return to the swamp to share a drink. Hawkeye again, reiterates the war's over. No more fixing kids up so they can go back and get hurt again at a more convenient time. But Trapper is stalwart in his, look, I'll believe it when I see it. And Hawkeye gets a little frustrated with him. Like, the war's over. We're going home, my guy. And he's like, we'll see. I'm not going to get my hopes up for something that I'm pretty sure is not actually going to happen. So they make a bet, $50. If the war is over, Hawkeye wins $50. If not, Trapper wins $50. Hooray. We then get Patrick Adiarty as Ho-John coming in to celebrate the end of the war, which is weird because I thought he got shipped off to the States, but hey, whatever. He is getting drunk, as, one would, and he expresses that he will be sad to see Hawkeye and all the others go. It won't be the same without them, and he wants a souvenir, to which Hawkeye offers up basically the entire swamp and camp to the Korean nationals, and Trapper's like, no, thank you, don't do that, please. But we don't care, Hawk doesn't care, and the Koreans start taking things anyway. And I would be remiss if I did not mention this tiny, insignificant, you wouldn't have even noticed it if I didn't say it fact, but do you guys like Ho-John? Have you grown attached to Patrick Adiarty?
No.
I like Ho-John.
Well,
Do you like Ho-John? Do you want to see all the wacky adventures he and Hawkeye and Radar and Trapper get up to in the ensuing 11 seasons that this show has to offer us?
no.
Yeah,
He can
I
ride.
guess.
Well, guess what? This is the last appearance of Patrick Adiarty as Ho-John in the entire series. I hope you enjoyed him while he was here. And
Did we get Ho-John 2.0 at all?
Find out in future episodes of Best Care Anywhere, wherever fine podcasts are sold. Sure. Anyway, no, this will be Patrick Adiarty, and we've talked about this over season 1, and I know when we had Mike on, he was very excited because Ugly John made an appearance, and he was very excited to share that with us. But yeah, season 1 was very experimental in, they brought a lot of characters from the movies. If you watch like Henry Please Come Home, the pilot, and a couple of the other episodes, there's a lot more doctors, a lot more named nurses, and they just realized that the show was just too many characters. There were too many people. And Alan Alda, Wayne Rogers, Gary Berghoff, and all the other main actors, Loretta Swit and Larry Linville, all them, were compelling enough on their own that they didn't need a huge conglomerate of cast. They just needed the Alan Alda as like the main, and then everyone else as, I don't want to say secondary because there are still main characters, but the show was compelling enough with the smaller group of people. You didn't need to have this big ensemble cast. So like we discussed, we slowly phased out. I think Private Boone was gone in a few episodes, and then Spear Chucker, then Ugly John, and now Ho-John. But that's the, I'll say it a lot of times throughout this podcast talking about this series. There's a lot of people who like to go, what if MASH did this? What if this character stayed around longer? What if this character and this character shared screen time instead of being from different eras? We got the show that we got, and I don't think it wouldn't have gone for 11 seasons and been as popular as it was if certain things didn't happen. And I think paring down the cast this early was one of those things. So I love my alternate history, but when it comes to MASH, I like to think that the reason we got what we got is because of just the decisions that were made, and to try to change it would, it's a moot point, because if it had changed, it wouldn't have been what it was. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Ho-John is no more. Very sad. Let's cry about it later. Frank, we now transition to everyone's favorite camp couple. Frank and Margaret. They are sharing champagne, toasting the end of the war, and also toasting their final hours together. Realistically, probably not. They'd probably spend several days and or weeks consolidating the MASH unit. But anyway, they think it's their final hours, and they are drinking. And Margaret is promising to Frank that she won't cause any trouble. He was her wartime fling. She won't cause trouble for him. She won't pester him, he can go back to his wife and live a beautiful, happy marriage and
Your cars and
continue-
your country club
Your
and your
cars
friends
and
and
your
your way
country-
of life and
your wife.
and your wife.
Oh no. And and they pour even more champagne, which is clearly a good choice. Radar comes by with his autograph book that he is.
Oh, his adorable little scrapbook.
His adorable little scrapbook. And I know I brought it up last time. Did you guys do the yearbook thing in high school, or did you
Only
guys
for
care?
senior year.
Only for senior year. How about you, Wilson? Was that a?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's, all 4 years.
So yeah, I was all 4 years too, just because I was a dork and my parents bought the yearbook anyway.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I looked at my high school yearbooks, genuinely. Like I don't think I ever ended up actually calling anyone that left me their number. The only ones I specifically remember people signing was like teachers or like really close friends that like anyone who just signed their name, like I don't know who the fuck they are. But if they like wrote I distinctly remember there are people that wrote paragraphs or that I sat next to in a certain class. But they're fun to go back through every once in a while. And then you realize, damn, high school sucked, and you move on.
Yep.
But
Such is life.
Such is life. But then you remember, dang, when I was in high school, I didn't have to worry about taxes, the economy, registering my car.
Housing market.
I
housing
actually
market.
still don't have to
The
worry about
housing
taxes
market.
because I just, don't pay them.
You said that on a live recording. Anyway.
What a funny joke Wilson
What a
just made.
funny
Oh,
joke.
that's I'm laughing so hard right now.
I'm certainly a wacky guy.
Defraud your government.
Defraud your government. Oh no.
In GTA 5 Online.
Oh, no. So Radar comes by to Margaret's tent, asks if she'd be willing to sign the notebook. She says,
this little notebook,
yeah, she's a busy. She can't do it right now. Oh, are you busy, ma'am? No. Well, I was just wondering that if you and Major Burns isn't here. Well, if Major Burns isn't there, how can you be busy? Frank, get out. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Radar continues his attempts to acquire signatures by going to Trapper and Hawkeye, who are the two, like, okay. You have the opportunity to sign something that someone is going to go look back on fondly.
Indeed.
Your name, like, the basic is just signing your name, right? So they remember you. I would hope in a war scenario where you've spent time with someone and gotten to know them a little bit, even though this is chronologically probably early in the war, you would say something a little meaningful, a little like, hey,
Something
Radar.
nice.
Radar, you were a beacon of innocence in a world of depravity, Hawkeye. No. Dear Radar, this is the best restaurant I ever ate in. Good luck, Hawkeye.
Very cool, Hawkeye. Thank you.
Very cool, Hawkeye. Like, part of me is like, I get it. Hawkeye's a funny guy, a silly guy, but this is one of the last interactions you might have with someone who looks up to you. I'm giving Hawkeye like a 2,
kind of a dick
like
move.
a 3 out of 10 on the message he leaves for Radar. And then Trapper somehow does it worse. Compliments.
How is Trapper worse at this?
Compliments of a friend, Trapper. To which Radar finally just looks at him and goes, man, you guys really know how to reach somebody. Which is funny, now that I'm thinking about it. Again, the joys of going over an episode a second time. And I will definitely be bringing this back up in about 2 more seasons. Trapper's short, very meaningless kind of goodbye message is interesting, and I'll just leave that there.
Oh, really?
Really, yeah. I won't elaborate. I just realized, like, man, Trapper's not a very sappy goodbye person. Anyway, the celebrations continue in the compound. They come to a brief halt, however, as Father Mulcahy asks for a moment of prayer, to remember to both thank God for ending the war, but also to remember the soldiers that will not be going home from the one. I thought, as goofy of an episode as this is, it was nice for them to have about, a moment to be like, hey, haha, happy fun celebration. This is the end of a war. War means people died. Remember, we had like 2 episodes about it so far. Great. Thank you. Just making sure we're all remembering that.
All right, back to the show.
Or as Father Mulcahy says, on with the secular festivities.
Thank you, Father Mulcahy. Very cool.
I love that they give William Christopher such like goofy Father Mulcahy. Like the amount of times he'll just spout Latin is kind of great in the series. The Koreans are once again making use of, I feel like, okay, not at our camp, obviously,
Right.
but did you guys ever, as you were, do you guys know anyone that as they were cleaning up their program area at their camp that they worked at somewhere else, you'd be like, cleaning up, huh, we have a lot of pens. 50 pens in inventory, 50 pens in my bag. No? Is that are those just my friends?
So I have a friend
You-
who was
do you-
walking by own camp one
Hang
day.
on. I feel like what Jared's about to say might save us. What's going on? What are you thinking over there, Jared?
No, sorry. Continue, Ethan.
All right, okay.
So this other friend, you wouldn't know him. He goes to a different school. Was walking by a climbing program area and looked over and thought, "Wow, they have a lot of footlockers. Wow, they have a lot of metal footlockers. Why are so many of them empty?
Yeah,
I
what's up
need
with that?
I need something to store my stuff in going home." And so we found a new storage footlocker. And
Wow, that's
Just sitting out
crazy.
in the woods somewhere. Yeah.
yeah.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, me and my friends, we all worked in shooting sports, so we couldn't. There's not much you can take from shooting sports that wouldn't be, a felony. But yeah, I've definitely made off with extra off. Remember, I will say though, the one time I did take something home, and this, but with permission, very clearly with permission, is in shooting sports, we're shooting a lot of 22 caliber ammunition, and because the guns get used so frequently, they typically don't get cleaned as much as they should, which leads to a lot of misfired rounds. And the policy with misfires is don't try to shoot them again. Put them off to the side and dispose of them later, either by pulling the bullet out, dumping the powder, and throwing away the casing and bullet, or if there's time, you just plink them into the sandbags on a clean gun with a good firing pin strike. We had way too many of those one year, and I just said, hey, look, person whose name I won't say because they're a private individual, you're in charge of the shooting sports department for the council. I have all these misfires. For me to, I don't have time to shoot them all before we pack everything up, and I can't leave them sitting in the safe. Can I just take them home and dispose of them on my own time? He said yes. I took them home. It's now my plinking at soda cans ammunition. So, yay.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah. Remember, safely dispose of your ammunition, people. Please do. Safely. So, yeah. So the Koreans are taking everything that's not nailed down, and even some things that are. It's very impressive. Hawkeye, however, in the middle of all this, is trying to have private time with a nurse in the middle of the swamp, which is in the middle of the roundabout that they're all marching around, with the tent flaps up. Okay.
Yes.
Big
Bold
brain
of him.
Hawkeye.
Big brain Hawkeye. But to Hawkeye's credit, he's like, they're all doctors and nurses. What can we possibly do that would surprise them? But as he is trying to make moves on the nurse, I believe this is Nurse. I had them pulled up because there are so many.
This is
of them.
Nurse Bravo, isn't it?
This is Nurse Alpha Bravo Charlie. Yeah. This is Lieutenant Barbara Bannerman, I believe.
Oh, I was right.
I believe it's either
Nurse
Nancy
Bravo.
or Barbara. It's either Nancy or Barbara. I don't know. It's unclear. I'm pretty sure this is Lieutenant Bannerman. Stops him and says, well, we've been seeing each other quite a bit, and you never really specifically said marriage, but you implied it. So now that the war's over and we're going home, what are our plans for us? And Hawkeye has to backpedal immensely and claim that he is already married with a family. And the nurse is kind of upset by that.
Yeah.
You don't call yourself an operator and not have a contingency plan. Your fallback should not be a wife and kids you don't have in this situation. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think he could have gotten away with, like, I know I said that, but it was wartime, and now I have to think about going back home, and I don't know if I'm ready. Like, he still would have been a douche move, but, like, he went the nuclear option way too quick. So he says, oh, I still miss you, and she's like, aw, why wait to miss me? And kisses him on the forehead and leaves, which...
Brutal.
Damn.
Girl boss energy. Girl boss energy from Lieutenant
Nurse
Bannerman.
Bravo's a girl boss.
Nurse Bravo is a girl boss. We then get one of my favorite interactions in the episode, and so far in season 1, my favorite two characters to see interact, other than our lead Hawkeye and Trapper. Radar and Henry. Radar comes into Henry's tent while he's shaving to ask for his autograph book back. Henry is a much better person than Hawkeye and Trapper in this regard, because he leaves Radar a much more touching message. Let me see if I can find it here so I can actually see what it says. Play, damn you. He leaves Radar a message, basically say, for Radar Riley, my comrade in arms, a swell egg who made Korea something special, which is significant considering they were in war. Thanks for everything. Good luck. Affectionately, Henry Blake.
Old Henry.
Yeah. Radar then asks, do you mean this? And he says, absolutely. He tries to convince Colonel Blake to meet him in the States.
Oh, Radar.
And they haven't even made it back home yet. We then flash back to Margaret and Frank, who are getting ever so slightly more drunk. Oh, did I miss? I did miss. Hang on. It happens so quick, I did miss it. Back to Radar and Henry. They have that moment after Radar reads his message. They have that weird, awkward pause, and they both at the same time say, "You've sort of been like a son/father to me," and it just, aw. Because something,
Radar.
I think I mentioned this, something we don't know about Radar yet. I don't think it's been revealed, quote unquote, to us, the audience, in season 1. But it'll make more sense. This moment will make a little more sense once I tell you. Radar was raised by his mother and her brother, Uncle Ed. His father was much older when Radar was born and is not around anymore. So for Radar to say that is kind of a big deal. And it's very wholesome, and I love it. And I want this to be a beautiful father-son relationship that has nothing bad happen to it ever. Anyway, moving on from that, before I cry. We then, like I said, flash forward to Frank and Margaret, who are getting steadily drunker on champagne. Margaret is now babbling, basically not quite incoherently, but I'm not going to make any trouble for you, darling. No phone calls, no letters. I won't even write you at your office. And Frank is very appreciative of this, says Margaret is a real prince. He means Cess, a Cess prince. Princess.
A Cess prince.
A Cess prince.
She's a Cess prince.
To which Margaret responds, Frank, you're such a ninny, and spills her drink on Frank's head, to which Frank, in shock and surprise, says, oh, Margaret, you know I must keep my inner ear dry. Which...
Oh, Margaret.
It's such a stupid, weird line, but Larry Linville delivers it so well. Oh, Margaret, I need to keep my inner ear dry. We then get Hawkeye in post-op commanding one of his patients to get better, or else he'll operate on him sober and blindfolded, which is a terrifying concept.
Classic
and then-
Hawkeye things.
Classic Hawkeye things. Which raises an issue that I think gets addressed in some future episodes. Like, they drink constantly.
Mhm.
There's no
Constantly.
way. There's no way, especially Hawkeye. There's no way Hawkeye it hasn't operated with at least a minor blood alcohol content. Like,
Oh, at a minimum.
at a minimum.
That's how his hands are so
Like
steady.
yeah. Which is, again, concerning. The nurse, Margie Cutler. You remember Margie Cutler, the one Trapper got into a boxing match to return to the 407th, and they were destined to be. Yeah, she's kissing Hawkeye now.
Some things never change.
Some things never change. She, similar to Lieutenant Bannerman, says, Hawkeye, the war's over, and, you know, you had mentioned marriage, and what happens with us now? He tells Margie, well, I'm suffering from terminal marriage, and we get this great silhouette of her banging Hawkeye over the head with a bedpan through the little divider screen. And I love that someone thought, no, let's do this as like a slapstick cartoon silhouette shot. Kind of great. I love it. We see Radar in the compound again, harassing people politely to sign his book. He and Trapper are wandering through and see nurses running away from a tent carrying handfuls of dresses. They follow the trail of nurses back to the tent and see that Klinger is having a ceasefire sale. Everything must go half price, all sales final. And Trapper is correctly warning Klinger, hey, maybe wait until this is official, because if it's not, you're going to be stuck with no clothes. And Klinger kind of blows him off. He's giving away stuff for free because they go well with what the person bought, which I fucking love about him. And Radar asks if he has this blouse in a different size for his mother, which, aw, Radar, how very nice of you. Margaret and Frank are getting, once again, very, very, very drunk. Margaret is promising not to bother Frank, and then she tries to stick her head in the wood fire stove so that she's no longer a problem for Frank.
She's so sweet.
She's so sweet. She loves his thin little lips and earlobes. She then asks him to take her home with him. Introduce me to your wife. We'll get along. You'll see. I'll be your nurse. But she's my nurse. Well, then I'll be your patient. I'll come down with something terrible. And you'll have to see me every day. I'll pay, Frank. You can even bill me.
Oh.
And they
Margaret.
stumble out the door. And Radar is waiting there to get both of their signatures.
Is now a good time?
Is now a good
Radar.
time? We're at the final party for the end of the war. The last nurse, Nancy, I believe, finds out that Hawkeye is married. She seems very excited about this at first, and Hawkeye's like, oh yeah? He's like, I left you a surprise. Just check your sleeping bag for a landmine. So Hawkeye has basically burned every romantic bridge possible in the camp, which...
That's my man.
Which, if the war was ending, sure, whatever. Tie up all your loose ends. General Clayton is there to celebrate the end of the war. Frank and Margaret look hungover as shit. In celebration of the end of the war, Hawkeye gives up all his poker IOUs to the sum of $1,500 and has a glorious slideshow of pictures of General Clayton's visits to camp. And they start out very noble. The general astride his jeep, the general dismounting his jeep, the general asleep at Henry's lectures, the general going to the bathroom, the general kissing Margaret. And these are just slowly getting worse and worse as we go. And as the camp begins to sing, not Nearer My God to Thee, I just watched a Titanic stream. What's the song? Auld Lang Syne, that's the one.
Mm-hmm.
As the camp sings Auld Lang Syne, Clayton gets a final notice saying that the ceasefire is not official and that the war will continue. And of course, dramatically, we fade out on Hawkeye's depressed face as choppers begin landing in camp.
Ah, how
Yeah.
unexpected.
How unexpected.
What a twist.
Our outro scene is the swamp teared down to bare bones of everything
Just the framework, really.
except Trapper stuff, because Trapper didn't give any of his crap away to the Koreans because good, yeah, good for Trapper.
Good job, Trapper.
And Hawkeye makes kind of a good point. He had to pay Trapper $50. He ruined all the relationships with the nurses. Clayton has his butt in his gun sights. He lost the bet to Trapper, the whole 9 yards. But at the end of the day, Trapper's like, would you make the same bet again? He's like, in a heartbeat, because it's a glimpse of light at the end of the goddamn tunnel, which I think is a very succinct, explanation of Hawkeye's character. Like, yeah, he's stuck in this shitty situation, but he's gonna maneuver whatever way he can to try to get some semblance of hope out of it, some semblance of this will eventually end. So, But yeah, he has no possessions, so he needs to work on that. So yeah, that was Ceasefire. Very quick, lightning synopsis of it. I have your guys' I still have your guys' ratings recorded from last week. But what did you guys think of Ceasefire?
Yeah, it's an episode. I mean, it's pretty basic, I think, but it has some nice moments.
Yeah. Wilson, what about you? You've been quiet and contemplative over there.
Oh, I don't know. It's all right. I can't add anything that Jared hasn't already. It's an episode. It's one of the episodes of all time.
It's one of the episodes of all time. I'll mention, I said it last time, but just to remind you guys, this was made just in case they did not get renewed for a second season. This would have been, they had a different ending where the war ended. This would have been the end of MASH had studio executives not made certain other decisions. So it's interesting that this could have been the last episode of MASH and it would have just been this one season,
this
random TV show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very weird to think about.
Cursed MASH.
Yeah. Cursed MASH. Jared, you gave it a 3.5. Wilson, you gave it a 3.7, and I gave it a 3.5. Again, I agree. This is the episode. This is an episode. This is the most episode to episode.
I believe it was. I gave it a 3.5 because it's closer to a 4 than a 5.
I see what you mean.
It's. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's
perfectly watchable.
It's closer to a 4 than a 2. Yeah.
Closer to a 4 than a 2. Okay, I see what you're saying there. I see. The audience liked it slightly better than we did.
Good for them.
Chad Smith gave it a 4 out of 5. Better than I remembered. It's played for laughs, but still highlights how desperate people are for any glimmer of hope. He does mention later season Hawkeye probably wouldn't have lied about being married to break it off with the nurses. Yeah. Hawkeye does have a character arc when it comes to his relationship choices. So that'll be nice to see. Chief Smash Forever says 4 out of 5. Fun episode because we get to see what might have happened if the war had ended with the early season cast and our main cast reactions. Seeing Hawkeye tell the nurses he's married and forgiving his debts only to see it all backfire. Trapper seems like a Debbie Downer, but is the most reasonable person. Good season 1 episode. Donator agrees with Ethan, 3.7. It's great seeing everyone's reactions to the news. He loves the opposing stances of Trapper and Hawkeye. And this makes it one of Trapper's better season 1 episodes. And he also mentions that all the named nurses we see, Margie Cutler, Nancy, Bannerman, they do not return, at least those characters don't. I think some of the actresses will be unnamed background nurses in season 2. But yeah, we do not see Margie Cutler, Lieutenant Bannerman, or Nancy, the last nurse, going forward. So it was kind of a good way to highlight them at the end of the season. This lightsaber kills fascists. Good old Mike Jameson. One of the better season 1 episodes, specifically because it gives Trapper something to do in all caps. I like that he is the driving force, one of the driving forces of the story. If they'd given Wayne Rogers more material like this regularly, maybe things wouldn't have happened. 4.5 out of 5. So yeah, fun little episode. Little bit of housekeeping that we need to do before we end this episode. I do want to say a big thank you. Oh wait, hang on. Come here. Where is it? Aha. A big thank you to Timothy Burleson. Way back at the beginning of March, he mentioned that he just heard about the podcast, and by the end of March, a few weeks ago, he gave us a 5-star review on, I can't tell what podcasting app he's using, but he gave us a 5-star review and said he really enjoys the show and is glad to see young people taking an interest in MASH, and he says we're doing great. So thank you so much, Tim. I appreciate that. And
thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Again, I keep saying this half jokingly and maybe a tiny bit seriously, for having dragged my 2 best friends into watching my favorite show with me. I'm glad that you guys seem to be enjoying it. You're either really good at gaslighting me or you are enjoying the show, and I honestly don't care. My serotonin is being fulfilled. But I'm glad that there are people, both old and young, who are listening to podcasts and are like, yeah, MASH, let's talk about it, because I'm sure everyone has a show like this, or a show in their favorite shows that they don't want to see get forgotten, and for that one for me is MASH. So I'm glad that people are enjoying the podcast. And if you are only listening to our podcast, just go type MASH into your podcast browser, because there's so many other great MASH podcasts. Go listen to all of them and never stop. MASH all the time, forever. On that note, I will mention that we have one more episode in season 1. Which means your last opportunity, if you found the podcast in the middle of season 1 over the last couple months, and you want to go back and leave a rating for earlier episodes, go back, watch the episode, listen to the podcast episode. There will be a pinned tweet on our Twitter, @bestcare4077. Leave a reply on that saying what episode you watched and what rating you give it. I will take ratings for basically back catalog episodes that you're catching up with until after season 1. Once we're going to do, what's the next show? It's Showtime. We're going to do a season 1 recap, and you have until that season 1 recap gets recorded to put in your final tallies for season 1 episodes. Does that make sense? I know you're listening and can't respond. I'm going to assume you're nodding your head vigorously. After that, so 3 episodes from now, we're going to watch MASH the Motion Picture that came out in 1970. So you have over a month to get access to that, either DVD, VHS, Laserdisc, rent it on YouTube, fly the black flag and acquire it elsewhere. However you choose to do it, I'm not going to ask questions. Your business is your business. Figure it out. Yeah, that's about it. Anything else that I'm forgetting?
I don't think so.
Cool. And with that, I'm going to say we're done with this episode. We will talk to you guys next time. I'm very proud of y'all. You guys didn't abuse the Discord sound board very much. There it is. I'm very proud of your restraint. It's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
So, all right, guys, we will see you in the next episode. I hope to God this episode gets uploaded. If not, I'm going to cry. And we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
The time has come for us to say sayonara. My heart will always be yours for eternity.